How to be your DM's favorite player. And not just because you're his wife and he has to say that. Hi, I'm Emery.
And I'm Tyler.
And we are Lore, Love, and Loot. And we are here to talk about some D&D tips and tricks. And today we are talking about how to be a good player here at our table in 2025. What is our table like?
Well, what we kind of open up with is just to say what kind of game we play. We enjoy all the pillars. We enjoy a little bit of combat, a little bit of social, and some exploration. A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. So this isn't like a super role play heavy table player tips or a super like only combat table player tips. This is just kind of the mellow all over. A well-rounded tip guide, if you will.
It's good to know what kind of table you have because some of our tips might not work for your table. Right?
Yeah, these are just things that we hope to have at our table that you expect us all to have.
Wow, that's the hope. That's the hope. We get there. We
get there some nights. Tip number 1 is very, very straightforward. To be a good D&D player, it is good to be prepared.
Yes, and that could mean a bunch of different things. Again, depends on the table, but what do you do first? What do you want to do to be prepared?
I come at it from 2 different ways. The one is like the physical, in terms of showing up on time, bringing your materials with you, making sure you have your dice and your character sheet and your notebook and all that good stuff. And the other is more of like a character-based point of view in terms of reading through a recap and knowing where you're jumping in so that when the table starts, you know where your character's at emotionally, physically, what city they're in, who they're talking to, what NPC they talked to last, and just grounds you in the world and ready to roll the dice.
Yeah, sometimes there's that dead space at the start where the DM kind of says what happened last time and then says, what do you do? And if you kind of sit there going, I don't remember what happened, what were we doing last time, then it can slow that start. So just get a strong start by knowing what happened, where your character was at, and it's a good way to start a session.
Speaking of character, knowing your character is an excellent way to make your DM like you. Again, I think of this in 2 different ways. I think of it the numbers, and I think of it the acting. So my other major hobby is acting and theater, and I tend to come to D&D from a role play and character driven focus. But so I often think in numbers and character drivenness in terms of knowing your character. Mm-hmm. So there's the actual sheet that's out there, and like knowing my modifiers, knowing what spells I have prepared, knowing my basic combat abilities. Like if you say that I need to roll to hit, I need to know what that means.
It's one of those things that, it's good for everybody at the table, really, truly, but it's good for the DM, of course, as well, but it keeps the game moving, especially when you're in combat and such. It's going to make your turns go a little quicker, get to the next players as quickly as you can, and not bog it down a little bit if you're looking things up all the time. So that preparedness is definitely appreciated.
Mm-hmm. And knowing if your character has, any class-specific skills they have, like knowing when a sneak attack might come into play, that type of thing, then those are really useful things to know and make sure you know and make your DM like you.
And of course, there's obviously some grace for a new player, a new character. There's time to learn those things, but over time, the expectation would be eventually you take those reins. You know those things. You take your character.
Mm-hmm. But the other way to make sure you know your character is obviously in D&D they give you the base layout of traits, bonds, flaws, ideals, right? Personality traits, bonds, flaws, ideals. Knowing what you've developed as your character and knowing what those 4 things are, or more in depth if you've built a more in-depth character than that, those things can drive your character choices and make them easier to make in the moment. If you always know what your character's objective and what your character wants is, then it's not going to bog up the role playing in terms of the numbers not bogging up the combat. Knowing your character's drive is not going to bog up your role playing because then you're answering in character and not panicking and saying something out of the blue that isn't related.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid to, after a few sessions as well, go back in, take a look at them again, and maybe even revise them, because some things that you picked in character creation may not have been how you actually are playing it at the table.
Yep.
So go back and take a look, change them up. If something's come up between characters and you feel like you need to kind of meld some of those personality traits or whatever, change them. Make it work for you. And then as part of that kind of beginning prep at the start of the game, look over them again. Kind of centers you on where you are for that character, right? It's a good little quick point for yourself.
Yeah, I did that last night, and there's definitely one that I forgot entirely as I've been playing her. So I need to do some tweaking in our current game.
You either take it out, or you alter it, or just make it fit, right?
Make it work. Number 3. D&D is a team effort.
Yes.
You are not the only one at a table. Even if it's a one-on-one campaign, you are still not the only one at a table. So being a good player at a D&D table means respecting those at the table around you. That can include simple things that we learn while we're young, like not talking when someone else is, and making sure we respect other people's turn in the spotlight and things like that. It means we're practicing active listening, which, by the way, can look different for different people. Active listening doesn't always look like, unfortunately, what we learn in kindergarten with sitting and leaning forward and engaging. There's all sorts of neurodiversities that affect that. And whatever your active listening is giving your whole heart and ears to this conversation, to this moment, to this combat, and listening in and respecting those who are having the spotlight in that moment is the best thing you can do. And whatever that looks like is good.
Yeah, I would say anything that you have, any tools that you have, you can always talk, to the players about. Let them know that, hey, I've got this thing that I'm holding because it helps me focus. Whatever you need to do to help you focus during the game and be respectful of the players is definitely something that can benefit you at the table. I myself, usually have a dice in my hand or something, and I'm just fidgeting with it. It just keeps me centered and keeps me focused on everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm. And as we know, there is many, many different types of D&D players and different play styles. And we're going to do a whole video on different play styles and how to be respectful of everybody at the table while still enjoying what you enjoy about D&D.
Yes. Yeah.
But our biggest thing is don't yuck someone's yum. Whatever somebody is excited about at the table, let them be excited about it. Maybe someone wants to min-max and build the most epic character that kills things in one swing of a sword. Mm-hmm. Not my jam. Okay? I want to cry and make other people cry.
It happens.
Yeah. But that's what I like about storytelling. I'm not going to tell the person who wants to swing a big sword that their game is wrong. Your fun is wrong.
Right. That's a phrase that goes around so often. And you can see so many different conversations that occur, especially online now, that people are arguing and it's just they have a difference of opinions. And that's okay. Then don't play in each other's games, right?
Yes, yeah. So, and we'll talk about that too, maybe setting up and making sure everybody at your table is on the same page about it. But in terms of that, it's just being respectful. If that person wants to build a super crazy combat build and I want to play a dagger-wielding sorcerer, which is what I'm playing right now. Yeah. Not entirely. I'll talk about her later. Then that's fine. As long as it's not, they're not going to get on me for not being optimized, and I'm not going to get on them for killing everything in one hit before I get to have a turn.
And so much of that is being open at the table with each other. A lot of the communication should happen. It can happen in and out of the game, but out of game, maybe in a session 0 or a side session 0 at another point in the campaign, it's good to bring it back at some points and go, hey, I'm playing this a little outside of the box right now and trying to do this little thing with it. I understand that's a little different, I get it, and I'll eventually maybe make some strides with the character and eventually come back into what the character is kind of supposed to be, but it doesn't have to happen right away. But that communication goes a long way too. Yeah. Let everybody else know what you're doing, at least to some extent, because some secrets are fun sometimes too.
I love secrets. Yeah, and the other biggest thing about being at a table is if you need help, ask for it, but don't tell other players what to do unless that help is asked for. Because some people need time to figure out what they're doing. Some people don't want their dice counted. Some people don't want to be told what spell should happen or what their DC is or any of that. Some people just need time to process, and that is okay. So if help is asked for, give freely. But let other players have player agency.
Absolutely. And there are those some kind of players as well that want to find the best way to win a combat and stuff too. But that again is where you kind of have to let people play their own character, right? Like we're all winning at some point when we're having fun, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it really just don't step on their toes, right? Let them make their choices.
Mm-hmm. Now, the DM is also a player at this table that we were talking about. And although I'm jokingly being like, how to make your DM like you and that type of thing, but the DM is guiding us all through this incredible story. And in my opinion, the most respectful thing we can do is take notes so that the crazy lore that he is spending all this time building and sharing with us is going somewhere and is for something, so that when he's dropping little nuggets of information and we're writing it down and catching it, then it's for something. It's not just into the void and gone. These little things that you're telling us.
Yeah, and then you can flip it around the other way too, because sometimes the players will bring something up that maybe wasn't written in their backstory, but they feel makes sense for their character, and they put it in there, and then it's a nice gesture as a DM to also take note of that. Because sometimes those things can come up again. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those things can come up again in an interesting way that challenges the player and the character. Yeah. But so keep note of those as well, the DM. Those things can definitely be useful in meeting family members or in meeting other people or characters they've come up with. That, again, maybe wasn't in their backstory.
We're going to do a whole video on note-taking and different ways that you can look at it, different ways that you can do it. But if in just like this base level, things that are important to take notes about are like NPCs, locations of importance, deities, which I know kind of is NPCs, the different lore, the story beats, different quest hooks, and one that is often forgot is character backstory from other characters. There's moments when somebody will mention something that they've gone through or something that their character's seen, and I will write it down so that I can come back to that character in a conversation later and make sure I touch on that, because that player dropped that tidbit for us, dropped that, what's the word? Nugget. I don't know. Drop that nugget for us to pick up, and I want to make sure I pay them the respect of then bringing it up later in the game. So that one's often missed for note-taking. And on that note, the best way to be an excellent player at the table is engaging in the game. Really,
I would say not the main point, but one of the biggest points of this game is to engage in what is happening. The DM, like you mentioned earlier, lays a story out and comes up with all these ideas and puts them before the players. And if the players kind of go in a different direction or just lose that hook and maybe don't write it down because they didn't take their notes, and just feel like there's not really a specific thing to do, then the game's going to flounder a little bit. So engaging in the world and engaging in the characters and engaging in what the DM's putting in front of you is really what we're here for, and it's the same thing in both directions. You have backstories you've created. I'll try to engage those backstories as the DM, and I'm hoping that then you engage in the hooks that I put out there.
That's not to say that sometimes chaos isn't fun, but if the DM lays a hook for you, it's really a respect to them that you pull on that thread and see where it leads. And sometimes there's 15 or 20 threads that you need to pull on at the same time, and you have to decide what to do as a group, and that's kind of fun as well. But it's the DM's job to lay this lore for us, and then we get to play in it, and that is so cool. But you need to respect it, and you need to engage with it.
And even a small story from last night's game actually is a good example where you can take this to a little bit even a higher level probably, is the players found a caravan that had been destroyed. There was some materials left in the caravan, and instead of coming up with everything that was in the caravan, I thought I was going to put it back on the player and ask the player, well, what do you find? And they gave an answer, and it worked, and they engaged well and in coming up with something that was reasonable. And it actually ended up with a little bit of a character thing between two characters, and it was great. And they engaged in the world, they engaged in each other's characters. It was a good moment.
Right, they could have thrown that right back at you and been like, well, no, what do I find?
Yeah. And even for myself in the past, I would have probably planned every little thing that's in the caravan and all that, but I'm trying to, it's almost a way to invite the players to engage more in the world by giving them options. So I'm actually trying to do that a little bit more.
Growth. In addition to pulling on all those strings, it's great if a character can make decisions that drive story. This is not a beginner D&D tip, but this is more if the scenes that your character's having and the moments and the beats that they are engaging in the world and their backstory and the other players with, if you can ensure that they're always driving some kind of story and it's not just like, hey, sky's blue today.
Yeah.
Like that's a real blue sky, right? If it's something that can drive this lore, this narrative that's being built at the table between this collective, that's way more interesting and engaging than just slinging a conversation for the sake of having a conversation.
Yeah, and driving story can look a couple different ways too. There's the central plot story that you might be driving, so it's engaging in the main plot itself. But then there's also engaging in each other's, like you mentioned earlier, taking notes about each other's things that they say in character. If you take that note and then eventually bring it up, like you said again later, that's driving story because you're hitting a beat that they brought up and thought was important, right? So if you bring it up again, I mean, the other player would appreciate it, that you were listening, you paid attention, you realized something important about my character. So bring it up again and drive the story. It's really easy to start phasing out of the game a little bit when you do talk about, hey, the sky is blue, or kind of those void conversations that don't really go anywhere. Try to have a point to your conversation when you can. Not every single one has to be, but if you can, go in with an objective in a sense. I want to talk to this character about this thing that they brought up, and then get to it, see if you can resolve it.
And then there's always the conversation of metagaming. Here's the thing. You can't play in character what your character doesn't know. So just because Emery knows something doesn't mean my character knows something.
Yeah.
But if Emery knows something, and it would be an interesting plot point, what Emery can do is finagle these conversations or these moments so that Emery's character can find out this information and engage with the story and the lore.
Yeah.
And I don't mean metagaming and cheating and things like that, but just asking the right questions and trying to delve into other characters' backstories or the lore or the NPCs or whatever it is. If that information is important to my character and they need to act on it so that my character can then know it.
Yeah.
But it's very hard when your character's not there for a situation and you know that they would engage with something to then sit it out. So that would be another how to make your DM like you is not metagaming.
Yeah, and there's a couple different ways that I would see that you could get around it. I think the first one would be, leave it alone. Hopefully they'll bring it up again, because then it's a kind of a, respect the other way as well from the other player, is not hoarding that information if you can at all help it. Unless it's something that was secret to your character. But eventually bring around, and maybe at the campfire at night you go, hey, by the way, I found this out about this thing, right? So that's one way to throw it in there. Now everybody knows, and no one has to worry about metagaming, that they all know. And another one is, like you say, kind of think of leading questions that get them to bring it up. Out of character, you could always say, hey, were you going to tell us about that thing? You could. But it's also fun to do it in character, where you can be like, hey, you were gone for a little while in there, what'd you find? Could bring that out of them and just remind them if maybe they even just forgot.
I think that's it more often than not.
It can happen, right? So it could be an honest mistake of, oops, I just forgot to tell everybody, and everyone's waiting for you to do it. So just in character, you could ask too.
This brings us to our second last point, which is building a group dynamic. We want to pull players in. So say we're sitting around the campfire, and I know this person who's maybe quieter or more introverted than I am, is not had a scene or has something to tell us or things like that, sitting around the campfire or crossing over on watches. That's when I can be like, hey, you good? Everything going on?
Yeah.
Like I can engage this player and bring them in. Or in a more specific thing, we all know that each character kind of has strong points and weak points, and letting other players shine when it's their spotlight is a really cool thing to do as a player. So like that's maybe me as the paladin not trying to lockpick the door. Maybe I get to the door, I see it's a problem, and I call in somebody who can deal with that a little bit better than I, and I bring them into the scene. It doesn't need to be my spotlight in that moment. I will have a spotlight later. This is their turn to be successful at the thing they're good at. Yeah. And I'm not saying in every scenario you need to have the ideal person doing the ideal thing. I just mean pulling in members of your table to have a moment to spotlight them, to celebrate what they can do and their successes or their failures, and making it more interesting that way, because it builds a group instead of I'm going to go through this whole thing and I'm going to do it by myself. And it's, yeah. And we all know that things could get tense at a D&D table. Another way to be a good player is to keep it positive. And I mean as the person, not as the character. You can get nasty and broken and mean and angry in character, as long as that's something that your whole table's agreed upon and is comfortable with.
Yeah.
As long as you keep it positive out of character and you don't let it affect your body language or your energy at the table when things are going wrong, or when things, we've all been at that session where your dice haven't rolled above a 4.
Oh yeah.
And it's really, really tempting to be angry.
You could get negative, right?
Yeah.
Like, you could really get down on yourself. You can feel like nothing I'm trying is going right. Absolutely, it can feel like that's happening.
Yeah.
But we're here to have fun. We're here to play a game. That's the last thing you want to do if you're not having fun when that's tough, right? So try to keep it positive, because it's also infectious, right? If you get really negative, the rest of the table can feel it too. Mm-hmm. As much as you think you might be holding it, it shows. So if you can, keep it as positive as you can. There's plenty of... I've seen some fights go so poorly for some people, and just...
Why not? Why not laugh?
It can happen, right?
I mean, yes, your character's dying and bleeding out, and everybody that you love is also dying and bleeding out. I'm not talking about last night, but I am.
Yeah. It was rough.
It can be stressful, but you can't let that affect your table energy, because it's not healthy.
Yeah.
And so on that note, last and final rule of being a good player is don't try to win. Oh, right. Oh, wait, those are the same.
They're the same. Really, they are. It's this game is we're here to have fun. Yes. And truly the way that you win D&D and RPGs and any other games like that is to have fun. It's if everyone at the table's having fun, then you're winning. Yeah. Like, truly, it's something that I've heard someone say it at some point, and I've really adopted it for myself. Like, have fun.
That's how to be a good player. And if you're interested in stepping up your note-taking skills and being an excellent player that your DM really likes, not just because you're his wife, stay tuned for our next video that will be coming out shortly, and we will see you then.
See you then.
This isn't necessarily a beginner D&D and D&D tip.